This episode of Monty's Minute is brought to you by Netflix. For a free 30-day trial, head on over to netflix.com/GamebreakerTV. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Monty's Minute, episode number 24 for March 12th, 2013. I'm Gary Gann, and you're watching Gamebreaker TV, and joining me, as always, the one, the only Mr. Monty Sharma. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Gary. I'm finally getting some sleep.
I was going to say, you had a big weekend, huh? Or a big couple of last few days. The game challenge was this past, weekend, or?
Yeah, last weekend. It was great, actually. We had 43 teams competing, both indies and students. And, you know, it's one of those things when you see a lot of things sort of concentrated together, like pitches or business plans or things like that, it gives you a whole different appreciation of things. You begin to see, you know, oh, wow, that looks just like that. And, you know, things that are unique stand out. So, We'll talk to some of these guys down the road, but you know I'll mention the two winners. The winner on the indie side, it's a company called 82 Apps. They're making a game that is essentially hacking to look like the sort of movie version of what hacking is like, but using some real stuff. So you know he played a great montage in his presentation of, you know, whenever they try to make computing look exciting in a movie.
Right.
Driving music, 8 screens up.
8 screen, the close to the cursor.
Yeah.
All that noise.
It's all the stuff that drives us nuts when we see it in a movie. So he's making fun of that, and he's put together a thing where you've got, you know, you've got your attacks, your defenses, and you're going in and you're hacking stuff. It looks really neat. Some of the folks who played the prototype liked it a lot. It's out March 14th, so that's going to be neat to see.
What's it actually going to be called?
It's going to be called Pwn.
Very cool. What was the other one you want to talk about?
The other one is the student one, and it's called Wobbles from Play Nimbus. And it is kind of a reverse Lemmings. So you've got a stream of these little characters coming across the screen, and you've got to do things to stop them from killing themselves. And, you know, the big thing for them was their artwork was really compelling. It was just like, oh, wow, you know, I can see it. It looks interesting. It makes that whole game charming, and that carried a lot. How
many entries did you guys get for this?
We had over 40.
Over 40.
So, yeah, 250 people there. I think it was 42 or 43 entries through. So it was.
And what are the parameters? They get just the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, or is there a certain number of hours, or?
No, so it's a pitch contest rather than a jam. So you can come in whatever state you're in, and you could have been working at it for months, and some of these people had been working at it for a long period of time and said, all right, look, here's what it is. You should give me the prizes to help me build my game, and so that, you know, gives you a whole different thing than a jam. We want to see things launched.
And then, but did some people actually come in with literally just a pitch?
Yeah. I mean, the student team, they had a pitch. They had well, actually, they had a really rough prototype. A bunch of the other ones just had concept art, game mechanics, and a business model.
And so you mentioned saying that did you see things that felt, not only is the word repetitious, but did you start seeing a lot of the same ideas sort of that felt rehashed to some extent? And then I'm looking for is part of your advice going into one of these things is try to have something really kind of unique and different?
Well, the main reasons that the judges marked people down, and I was in the judging room, and while I submitted scores, I only cast one vote in the entire thing. I let the rest of the judges do it and tried to wrangle them. But, you know, in the judging, you repeatedly see things like, look, it's been done before. And so you haven't brought anything that's really unique or interesting. Your art style isn't compelling. You don't have a twist on the game mechanic. That's weak. The other thing that came up a lot was the business model is, non-existent or has lots of questions. If people out there would understand, Kickstarter is not a business model. It's just... So how are you going to make money on this? Well, we're going to go to Kickstarter. That's not how you make money.
It's not. I think you just put your idea up on Kickstarter, it prints money. It just kind of comes right out. Just like, hey,
exactly. It's crazy. And so, we had a couple of folks who said, yep, they're going to go Ouya, and they got slammed for that in that, okay, look, you might say you want to do it for Ouya, but if you don't have other platforms that actually are deployed and have, proven mechanisms, you just look wrong.
Now you're trying to leverage bets on their success to actually have penetration. Yeah. That seems like a pretty bad idea as well. Yeah.
And out of 10 judges, all of whom were, industry veterans who've been around, seen lots of things, there wasn't a single one who thought Ouya was going to make a big dent. So
wow,
that was interesting. Yeah,
I mean,
they might. The collected wisdom has been wrong before. But that was interesting to see.
Very cool. Well, make sure when that app goes live, let's demo that on the show or something. I'd like to see who won.
Yeah,
it'd be good because I think it'd be really good to show off to a lot of people who are interested in this show, are really interested in events like this and want to know what to go there with. So I think it'd be great to kind of show it off and see exactly like, well, hey, this is what they came to the table with. All right, let's get to it. This week from Johan T-Man Tortensen, we get a lot of questions from Johan. Says, hello, Gary, Monty. Thanks for an awesome show, and thank you to take the time to answer our questions about the industry. My question is, regarding gaming industry and location. I live in Sweden, a small country with almost 10 million residents. Now, we have companies here that are kind of big. DICE is one of the biggest, I guess. But for me, it feels like in order for people to more or less achieve something, they have to move to America. So how come companies don't invest in countries like Sweden? We do we have awesome internet service, great social security, and medical service. Even our schools are free. In higher schools like college, you have to pay, but for your books, but that's all they have to pay. And nature is very inspiring, has been inspiring vistas. So is it true? Do you have to come to America? And if so, how come more game companies aren't setting up shop in Sweden?
Well, there's a few reasons behind this, and it's not just Sweden. We used to say the same things in parts of Canada. They say the same things all over the place. You'll find people in the United States saying it about other parts of the United States. First off, Sweden is awesome. It's beautiful. It's inspiring. I know a number of people in the game industry there. The Nordic countries in general tend to show very well in game development. They have disproportionately high number of game developers for their population. A lot of great companies and wonderful people, and absolutely life is good there. The one thing I'll say is every game conference, there's usually a Nordic party that all the Nordic companies get together to throw. And that is always the hot ticket of the show. Everybody wants to go to the Nordic party, always the most fun.
Wonder why.
It's, a bunch of nice people drinking until they can't stand. It's not bad.
Sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah. So there's a few reasons why this happens. One is access to capital and markets. So you can start a company somewhere, but if you want to raise money, if you want to, be close to a market, you end up setting up closer to where that market and that money is. And so that, San Francisco is a big reason that's a draw. Is there's lots of money, there's lots of people who are working in the industry. So if you are, think about my friends at CCP. They're in Iceland, and there's a few other game companies. There's like 5 or 6 now. A number of which are spun off from CCP, but they spend a lot of time schlepping to California and other places where, the heart of the industry is. So when you're living in Sweden and you're spending all your time flying over to the States, at some point in time you say, wait a minute, I could just move here. Venture capitalist investors don't tend to like to invest too far from home. In fact, for the most part, you can't get them to get on a plane. I mean, our office was 20 minutes outside of Boston, and our VCs would complain that we were in the boonies. Why don't we move into town? So, those sorts
Why
of
is that? Do
things
they just want
happen.
to drop by? Do they just literally VCs? They don't really tend to do that, right?
No. Maybe they're just lazy whiners. I didn't say that. It's the sort of thing if they want to meet with you regularly, and I think it's part of it is their influence, their network tends to be regional. It's here's all the people I know in town. You're in town, I can introduce you to all these guys. If you're an hour, 2 hours away, then we're not in the same sort of community, right? That makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that hurts is staffing. So if you're in a country of 10 million people, you've got a bunch of very talented game designers, but they're employed. So if you need to hire a lot more people, you're not going to be able to source that in Sweden. And so people will end up setting up either splinter things or other things and move out. You will see some companies, I know Funcom did this, they're out of Oslo. I know it's a different country, but it looks the same. They found that they were offered huge tax incentives to move to Montreal. And not only was it huge tax incentives, but there was a huge number of developers in the region. So it cut their cost of development, it cut their cost of recruiting, they could tap into more talent. And so they substantially reduced their staffing in Oslo. And then I think some of the staff wanted to go to places where it was sunny more often.
All right, next up we've got a video question in. This is from Jonathan Munoz. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Jonathan, here you go.
Hey guys, my name is Jonathan Munoz, and I'm a game design student at Becker College. I just want to start off by saying thank you for putting on the show. It's been a source of indispensable knowledge for students such as myself looking to get into the industry, and a big shout out to MassDigi for putting on another awesome game challenge. A friend and I have recently been discussing how this is the first time in history we have gamers who have been playing digital games since childhood. As these gamers start to get older, most of them aren't going to be able to keep up with the fast, finicky gameplay that a lot of popular games nowadays have, yet their passion for gaming will remain. I did some research and I couldn't really find any games catered to the seniors of our society, and I'm very curious to hear your guys' thoughts on what types of games, gaming technologies, and new market opportunities that we'll see as these gamers start to get into their 60s and 70s. Thanks.
So, interesting question. Audio was a little off there, but I think it's on our side. So first up, is there a game market? Is there a market for games for people in their seniors, 60s and 70s?
There's a small one now, and it's going to grow. So, right now, a lot of the Wii games, they use them in nursing homes and. When you go to God's Waiting Room down in Florida, you see that sort of thing. Lots of people just to, for the mobility aspect of it. And I think Jonathan's right in the point of, look, you're not going to be doing a first-person shooter when you're in your 70s. Or there's going to be some sort of equalizing.
Hold that tongue, Monty Sharma. Watch that tongue. I'll be on Gears of War 13 when I'm in my 60s.
Exactly. No, it's getting to the point that I'm getting a slight tremor in my hands now. Just from, you hit middle age, these things start to happen. You start dealing with that stuff, you'll be playing different things. So, storylines will be different, so you'll see a lot more things like that. There's a lot of sort of mental acuity things that go along with it. So, Sudoku, word games, things like that. They're doing a lot of research in those areas. And there's a number of companies working on things around what's called neuroplasticity, in that your brain can actually change. When I was a kid, they used to say things like, when your brain reaches maturity, that's it for brain cells. You never get any more. Nothing changes. You know, that's your brain. Every time you have a drink, you kill 10,000 of them. And they found that not to be true. Your brain continues to develop more neurons. And depending on what you do and how you do it, you can change pathways in your brain. So, you know, if you think about things like Alzheimer's or any of these things, the more we understand about it, the more things we can do to build those pathways to get around blockages like strokes and things like that, the more opportunity there is going to be for old folks.
Interesting stuff. All right, next up, this one from Lightspeed. Lightspeed says, with more advanced mobile chips like the GeForce GTX 680MX, that is like a hot rod, super advanced video card for people not knowing. He says, in companies like Ubuntu getting Valve on board with while also expressing a serious interest in taking gaming to the next level on phones, is the game industry about to see another surge of new customers from these potential emerging mobile markets?
Yes. You know, actually, I would say more interesting than the video chip technology right now is, have you seen the stuff around graphene?
Oh, yes.
The battery technology?
Yes. I have a buddy. You know my buddy, Mr. Newport.
Right.
Yes,
yeah.
Of course.
I knew it had to be somebody wicked smart.
Much more smarter than I am. He was like a little 12-year-old kid. He's like, I have to tell you about graphene. It's amazing. Yeah, it's a battery technology that is just super, super thin, apparently, but can hold an incredible charge and is super easy to actually charge. Really
quickly. So you could charge your phone in like 5 seconds.
Right. And
so that's really cool. So things like that. So, like, what people have to understand is the layers of technology actually start at power. So when you, especially in a mobile device, or a particular mobile device, it's how much power can I put in? Then once that power is figured out, then what kind of chip can I run? And based on that chip and the amount of power I have, that tells me how long that device can actually operate. And there's, you know, if you have a device that needs to be charged multiple times in a day, you're not going to be too happy with it. Then comes sort of the video resolution. The video resolution depends on the screen as well as the chipset and all of that. So all of these things, you know, in mobile really come up built on the battery. And the more efficient you get that, you know, the better the opportunity is for you to do really cool things. So I can see as we get better battery technology, you know, we're better densities, batteries last longer, put out more energy. You get better chips in there. Better chips result in, you know, sort of the console-esque gaming experience on a mobile device.
How far off do you think the graphene actually to hit a consumer in some sort of a product is?
Okay, so let's assume what they're saying now isn't hype. Probably 5 to 6 years, because it's a question of, okay, they created it, then they found a mechanism to produce it efficiently in large scale. Now they have to find a way to package it and you know, study it over time, discharge cycles, things like that.
What market do you think? And what market do you think will actually see it? You think it'll be like a mobile phone market, something smaller, like a device like that, or do you think it'll go straight into car technology?
I think that all depends on the amount of charge they can hold in the densities. So if they can pack enough in, cars will be there. Even small, if it's fast, a fast charge is a big thing. Like my iPhone 5 charges way faster than my 4S did. Seems to charge in about half the time. So all the improvements there are going to make things better, and people will gravitate towards it. But just think about it in terms of manufacturing cycles. So let's say it takes them 2-3 years to work out everything, get it into a factory. It'll still take 1 year to 2 years before it gets into the manufacturing channel and they can produce it in large enough quantities for a device that it's been designed for. So, you know, 5 to 6 years. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really interesting technology, guys. Go look it up, called graphene. Go check it out. Next up from McKim. Says, love the show. Thanks for putting the time in to make it. I work for a software company and I am quite happy in my job. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about what we could learn from games to make our software better. Bit of a tough question, not really understanding the software and things like that, but I think a lot of companies are looking at the gaming world because they see that they could possibly teach people things in a more fun manner, so they're not actually like, it doesn't feel as much like work.
Yeah, well, I think I'll say there's 3 things that are sort of top of mind there. One is when you look at things like in games, we call them compulsion loops. So how do I get somebody to start doing something, learn a few things, move on to the next thing? So if you look at sort of enterprise software or major software packages, they're horrific. The UI tends to be a real pain in the neck. They're very complex to use, and people don't get the full use of them. So building a compulsion loop that pulls people through the software has a big impact.
Is that by design, or is that because like a lot of those types of products are built by engineers and not necessarily like, engineers love to put as many things and pack as many things in per square centimeter as they possibly can. Whereas somebody like an artist would want to design something and think about the UX, UI more than just the functionality.
Yeah, no. So games put a whack of functions in there too, but the difference is in the game, you have a risk of in the first 30 seconds on a mobile app, if the user doesn't like it, they're gone for good. If you've paid $500,000 for an ERP solution or more, the person's going to use it for 20 years whether they like it or not. But the drawback is a lot of the cool things that you can do, you lose because you haven't pulled that user through understanding what you're doing. And so approaching it in a different way, from a design functionality, from the UX, from things like only exposing certain features at a time and being responsive in that way, using analytics off of the software to adjust what's happening. All of those things, that's a big component. The second thing I point to is business models. I'm sick and tired of business apps that want, $300 or give me $20 a month. I looked for one to do flowcharts a couple weeks ago, and there was something that was, fairly decent thing, but it was like, we want $5 a month minimum. Well, I haven't used your product. I don't know if it's any good. I don't want to sign up for this. I hate recurring subscriptions. So I went off. I used Google Docs. It wasn't as good as what they had, but it was, within my control. Free to play is something to learn from. And there was another company, Prezi. Yeah, interesting presentation application. I thought, that's kind of neat. I had to poke around at it. Except, unless you pay them, your presentations are always made public.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to play around with it. I'm not going to learn your product, in which case I'm not going to pay for it. So the games, when they really create these free-to-play opportunities to try it out, you like it, you want this feature? Great, pay a little more. You want this to happen? Pay a little more. And I feel happy when I pay for free-to-play games, and I don't when I pay for a lot of business software. And then the third thing I point to, and you know this very well, is the concept of an engaged community. So a lot of enterprise companies, their focus is, we did this, we send people out, we do focus groups. Maybe if we're really big, we'll have a users conference, but it's not the same thing as that day-to-day, hour-by-hour engagement with a community that you see in games and things like Gamebreaker.
That's a very hard thing for a lot of companies to understand and grasp. On top of that, would you suggest if some of these companies can fit it into their budget, to maybe look to the gaming industry to hire consultants out to come in and kind of give them some advice on something like this, or could it disrupt their whole workflow quite drastically?
No, I think what you're seeing, there's more folks are being involved in that. I know that a guy I know who worked for NCSoft, CCP. He's actually now at EMC, the big storage and more kind of company. And he's doing community management there. So he's trying to leverage some of the things he's learned on the gaming side to bring it into a very large and very stodgy company. And there's a ton of EMC employees living around me, so hopefully they're not watching. But it's good.
And I can almost imagine maybe even possibly if you're willing to take a little bit of a risk, probably scoop up some of these guys at the game jams that Monty's having, all these, up and coming game developers who may not have a game under their belts, but you know what? They'll probably gladly give you some advice and maybe even just like kind of test drive your software and look at it from a gamer's perspective. And hey, there might be some great information in there and you might not even have to pay them. They might just even do it just to have a resume, right?
I think it'd work. It'd be a great thing to see.
Monty Sharma, follow on the Twitter at Monster, MONTSTER27. And of course, if you have a question for Monty and you want it answered here on the show, make sure to send it in to Monty@Gamebreaker.tv. That's where we accept questions for this show. If you have a video question, send it in as well. Post it up on the YouTube. Send us the link. Send it over to Monty@Gamebreaker.tv as well. We do the show live every single Tuesday. Yes, it's Tuesday. I don't even remember what day it is anymore. But it's Tuesday.
Yeah,
it's 3.
Except for the Tuesdays when we don't.
Exactly. So we're kind of from the future. Monty, another great week. Have a great week. Thanks for watching. Right. We'll see you next week on Monty's Minute.